Welcome, Massimo, to this first conversation, right? Where we're basically just going to have a talk on leadership. Massimo is an individual who I've worked with for the past year. He has not only been really helpful, but he's been an inspiration. He has been a mentor. He has been someone who has regulated my nervous system multiple times. So I didn't want to. The word gatekeep is used a lot nowadays, but I don't want to gatekeep Massimo, and I want people to really know in terms of how he's helped me as a diaspora Tamil, who is, from a different culture, from a different generation. But in terms of experiences and vision, we are quite similar. So, I'm joined here today with Massimo Maltempi, right? And maybe Massimo can say a few words about himself and just introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you, Benton. A real pleasure to be with you today. So, I spent many years in my life in leadership positions in different organizations, in different countries, different cultures, and yeah, I've been learning a lot, interacting with people, and dealing with business challenges on a regular basis. And more recently, I've been sort of working more as a mentor, as a coach, as an advisor, helping organizations navigating through the challenges and opportunities that are out there in the market. So thank you, Benton, for having me today.
Thank you, Massimo. As you guys heard, he said he's a mentor, and I'm proud to say he's a mentor to me, right? I want to keep saying that probably throughout this recording. So when Massimo does become too famous to handle, I will still be raising claim to him. Okay? So in terms of my own leadership skills, um, I'm definitely not someone who wanted to be a leader as a child. Definitely not someone who wanted to be a leader in my 20s either. But I've been kind of reluctantly put into positions where I've had to lead, mostly in terms of charity work. And I found that I am actually quite well fit to be a leader because I see the group as part of me, as we have a shared vision, as we're working towards something. And it's been easy so far in getting projects, from the planning stage to the actual fruition of it. But now to really go into the next level of leadership, I think it's more important for you to take a mature perspective, for you to be really realistic, to understand the different perspectives of the other people within a group. Well, maybe they don't really agree with you for whatever reason, but how to move forward. So, Massimo, the first question I have for you, right? And I think it's going to be really relevant for pretty much anyone who's going to listen to this recording, is basically, how do you work with people if you don't necessarily like or trust them? Or the other way around, if they don't like or trust you, right? And it's very clear in the human dynamics and the way that things are going, how do you make this work? Okay, and how, as a leader, can you stop it from falling apart?
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. I mean, a leader doesn't necessarily need to be liked and loved by everybody, and same for all the other members of the team. I think what is important is that there is clarity
Mm,
about the overall mission of the organization, clarity around the objectives, who owns what,
mm,
how do we raise concerns, how how do we make decisions when we don't agree.
mm,
So how to acknowledge different points of views and how to arrive at a decision, a solution. So there is a lot about rules and processes that need to be agreed, and
mm,
that is kind of a rational and structured approach that can, in a way, minimize, reduce the input sort of coming from emotions. So we may like or may not like, we may be liked or not liked. And I think it's important to acknowledge that maybe we come from different cultures, different backgrounds. We may not necessarily agree all the time, but we have a process and a structure and a clear accountability and clear responsibilities so that we can work together as a team. If there is misalignment, if there is disagreement, it really needs to be spoken about, cannot
Mm.
be ignored, and there needs to be a conversation, a negotiation around, arriving at a solution that really is suitable and works for everybody. I mean, that's kind of the end goal.
100%. And I think that, basically what you said perfectly goes on to the next question, right? It's just something that I've heard a lot of in the past year. I don't know if it's because of the rise in AI, but people constantly talk about the complexity of leadership, right? I hear this all the time. It's become almost a buzzword, right? What does this actually mean? Yeah, because we're all in some sense a leader, right? Maybe we're not leading teams, but we're leading ourselves.
Yep.
Maybe we have siblings or friends or something, right? So in terms of a day-to-day decision-making process, in terms of you working towards a project, what is complex about it? Is there like a set criteria that we can deal with?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I would define complexity. I mean, in the current environment, um, it is the situation when we're in, when we have to act, we have to decide without having a full certainty, a full
Mm,
knowledge, and therefore there is not a single right answer.
mm,
Because clearly we don't have the full picture, we don't have the full set of information, no one does it, and not even automation and technology can help us. So when we are in this situation of complexity, I think it's really important that we kind of rely on our guiding principles, our
mm,
North Star. So what are the values that inform our behavior and the behaviors of our organization? And it can be personal, like in a family environment, a group of friends, but also in a business. Is it, you know, caring about people? Is it growing and developing them? Taking care of them. I'm just
mm,
making some examples. So and as long as we have a clearly defined set of values and goals for us as individual and as an organization, we can actually navigate through the complexity and decide and make decisions that may not be perfect or will not be
mm,
perfect, and there will not be just one right answer, but they all go into the same direction in achieving kind of the values and the guiding principles that are important for us. So that for me is really key. I mean, have a value-based or principle-based approach to decision making that can help us deal with complex situations.
Oh, thank you, Massimo. When you were going through this, what it reminded me of was basically when you helped me write up the vision statement
Yep.
last year for the charity. Because pretty much every single time when I was telling people I was doing charity work or I was working on projects in Sri Lanka, I would just not know where to start. I wouldn't know where I'm going with it, but all I knew was I'm doing something to help people. In terms of my team that I worked with at that time, they were very young, right? They were very individually matured, but in terms of working as a team, they were quite inexperienced. So having that vision statement definitely helped me weed out people who didn't want to work, right? Because when you set out the standards, people knew that they weren't going to be able to stick to it. So that way, it helped me. So, Massimo, leading on to my next question, right? After I got the vision statement sorted out, and after I came, as an organization, we came up with like a very simple 5-year plan. We came up with great step-by-step projects to work on. And one of the projects was essentially an art exhibition, and it was supposed to be planned and it would be taking place right now in the start of the year. And we had the artists lined up. We knew the amount of work we had to do. We had venues lined up. We had some sponsors, not a lot, but we had some sponsors to look after, the financial side of the projects. But for whatever reason, right, it just fell through. Okay. So even though we had such an amazing strategy and plan and whatnot, things fell through. What I'm basically asking you is how do we actually make concrete plans? How do we actually communicate that we're actually working together? This is not about me or you, right? Regardless of me or whoever saying this is not about me, still there is an ongoing feeling, right? That someone else is going to get credit or whatever it may be. Okay. And I know this kind of touches on what you've basically answered before, but I'm just asking from your perspective, how do we go past a good plan to actually see it in
Yeah,
fruition?
yeah. I think in my experience, the biggest challenge to a great plan is what I would call unspoken disagreement, meaning people don't agree partially or fully to the
Mm,
plan, but they don't say it. So they
mm,
nod, they say yes, they say that I'm with you, but
mm,
in reality they are not.
mm,
And um, it varies from culture to culture. So in some cultures, uh, people tend to be more outspoken
mm,
and are more vocal about not agreeing. In other cultures, it is much more subdued, and people don't tell that they don't agree. So that's kind of one big thing, and therefore that leads to people not really owning things and therefore not carrying the weight that they should carry. And the other thing is around role ambiguity, role confusion. So it's more on around how the project is structured and who does what. Now, going back to the first one, unspoken disagreement. I think, and in my experience, I mean, and it is a journey, the role of a leader is the role of someone that creates a safe space
mm,
where people are actually okay for saying, I don't agree, I don't
mm,
feel comfortable, because they know that they will be heard, there will not be adverse consequences
mm,
if one then express disagreement, and people need to be taken through this journey so that also depending on their own personal experience, the culture, etc., they can go from a stage I don't agree and I won't tell him
mm,
to okay, I am okay, I'm fine in saying that I don't agree because there will not be negative consequences, and actually my point of view will be heard, will
mm,
be understood, considering that, if we are part of the same organization, we'll be sharing the same values, and so if we share the same values, there will be room to discuss, there will be room to negotiate, and hopefully arrive at an agreement. So that's
mm,
kind of how we can encourage people to express disagreement as opposed to keeping it unspoken, and
mm,
therefore creating the foundations for failure because
mm,
there is not the motivation to do so. When we speak about the role confusion and role ambiguity. I think, and this is easier to do,
Mm,
it's about assigning and agreeing clearly defined roles and responsibilities and tasks, and being clear as to what has to be done individually versus what has to be done collectively as a group, and who is accountable for the
mm,
whole thing, and who is responsible to help the accountable person and the team achieve those results. And
mm,
again, having a clearly defined set of values and a vision can actually help people in a way coming together, and a safe environment will also help people express their disagreement or their opposing point of view, and that can definitely help.
mm. Yeah. Thank you, Massimo. I mean, when you were going through your points, I was basically thinking of myself and when I used to work as part of teams where I used to carry out tasks and honestly wasn't really clear on what the one who was leading the projects wanted, right? Obviously it's completely different when it's paid work because there's a company who comes up with a plan and we know what we're working towards. We know what the target is. But when working for charities, it's not so clear. So when I started to lead projects in charities, I think I took too much of an empathetic perspective where I was almost babying people, even though they were a lot older than me, right? And also really young people, I was possibly being a little too understanding in terms of what they could handle, what they couldn't handle, and I wouldn't really go into a lot of detail because I felt, oh, this is going to be a bit overwhelming for them. But I think in this last year, I've matured a lot in terms of understanding that if people, right, if you are 17, 18, 20, 21, 30, 34, whatever it may be, right, if you are not shown the realities of what's being faced as a leader, then people don't really know why they're here or what the purpose is. So if they don't really know, then it's not really fair for me as a leader to get frustrated with them. Because sometimes, even though I'm very calm, sometimes I have lost the plot, right? And that's just being completely honest because I felt like we're working towards a shared goal, been very clear, been very helpful, patient, understanding, but I'm still not getting anything back. So yeah, for myself, what I've learned is definitely to make it very clear on what the tasks are. As a human being, you can understand, but in terms of a project, there's things that need to be done. And if you can't do it, you have to say. That's basically what I've learned. But Massimo, not to, constantly, overly praise you or anything, but in terms of your leadership skills, right, you are one of the most calmest person that I know. Okay, and I know a lot of calm people, right? Even my own family members, extremely calm. They can handle pressure. I've gone to multiple presentations of yours where we've had, guests pretty much start to heckle, right? And you always remain calm. Okay, it's not like you have a poker face or anything. You literally want to understand where they're coming from and you take it on, right? You keep it moving. So basically, you know, obviously it's probably part of your personality, right? But for myself, I'm also a very calm person. I'm also very patient, but sometimes I'm not really able to keep my temperament. Okay, I can handle pressure, but when I feel like there's a pointless question, I just get really blunt in answering the question. So how would you suggest that someone keeps calm in these types of situations?
Yeah, I think what is important is to be mindful of the end goal of an interaction, which is really to exchange knowledge, exchange points of views, have a discussion. Clearly, emotions come through, and um, you know. people can have different sets of emotions,
Mm,
from being happy to be sad, to be angry, and everything. And I think it's really important for us collectively to be empathetic, meaning to understand the emotions that the other person is going through without necessarily feeling them. So if
mm,
somebody is angry, it's about recognizing the anger in the other person, but without becoming angry or or sad or upset or
mm,
whatever. So it, it doesn't mean therefore to be passive and not doing anything. It actually means being very focused in listening and understanding and trying to get the real message behind the emotions and be able to recognize that so that for us as individuals, for us as leaders, we keep on listening, we keep on observing, so that we can provide the best possible answer, the recognizing the feelings and the emotions that people go through, but without getting, in a way, influenced by the anger, the sadness, and everything else. So that for me is really important. I mean, it's part, what I would call, of the emotional intelligence,
mm.
meaning be able to recognize emotions, be able to acknowledge them, um, demonstrating support anyway, and trying to sort of being helpful and constructive. So that's how I think calm comes into place, essentially by, in a way, acknowledging the situation and really doing whatever we can in order to bring I would say, the situation into a right place that satisfies as much as possible as many people as possible. So
Mm.
that's kind of what at least for me, what it really means uh, to be calm and to bring calmness and into difficult situations.
To bring the equilibrium back to a room.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
100%. I think so, Massimo, obviously you know that I work as a lecturer, but for those who are watching this, right, constantly, I've been a lecturer now for almost 4 years. And when I first started to teach, I found that I constantly was, like the word you used, was quite passive because I was understanding too much. I would see the shy student, I would see the quiet people, I would see the ones who probably have, unprocessed trauma, and I wouldn't really get them involved in discussions because I didn't want to open up, any possible nervous attacks or any panic attacks for them to happen, or someone to start laughing when they said something, right? I was a bit too emotionally aware, I'd say. But what I ended up finding is that it was actually really disrupting for the flow of the classroom because I constantly was trying to zero in on individuals rather than seeing the collective. And as you grow with experience, now what I do when I walk into a classroom is see the classroom as a collective consciousness and deal with that, right? Individually, I may have a chat with someone after class, right? Or if they're on break, I may approach them and have like a 10, 15-minute conversation, maybe take them out for a coffee, something, right? To let them know I'm there as a human being. But classroom time is time for everyone to sit and see where we're going as a class, including myself. So that's really nice to hear from you, Massimo. For myself, because it's definitely brought a new perspective to my calm energy, right? Because I'm very calm in myself. I'm very confident in myself. I'm really calm and confident in terms of what I can do for others. But sometimes I get a little bit panicky, or I used to get a little bit panicky when I used to sit around thinking, what if this person, you know, has an episode, okay, explodes in the middle of the classroom? Or maybe this certain group of people may not agree or understand where I'm coming from. So I'll kind of walk on eggshells and then they'll still explode anyway, and I won't know how to deal with it.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
yeah, I think what you said is perfect, Massimo, just to see the end goal and stick to it, right? It's not so much that you're not reacting to people, is that you've come to deliver something, deliver that,
yeah,
right? And that's probably the best way to stay calm. So Massimo, I mean, we've spoken for about 25 minutes, right? I think I'll just leave you with one more question. Okay, you currently work quite substantially within artificial intelligence
yeah,
in terms of incorporating it into businesses, negotiations, everyday life. It's something that we spoke about
yeah,
before was how, for me, AI has been really helpful,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
right? And that's because I believe I'm a critical thinker. I am able to know what's useful and know how to benefit from it,
yeah.
right? I can't say that for everyone, right? So, with all of this being said, Massimo, my final question is basically asking you, what do you think an effective leader, whether they are introverted, extroverted, whatever, right? How can they best utilize artificial intelligence in the next 5 years to better their leadership skills?
Yeah. I think it's an excellent question, because AI is clearly changing the way we work, the way we operate, the way we think in a number of different ways. I mean, I was watching a year six student
Mm,
yesterday, um, actually asking ChatGPT to solve a problem in math,
mm,
and asking ChatGPT, what is the reasoning, what is the thinking
mm,
behind. So our cognitive skills are actually changing and evolving. I think what is important for us as individuals and as leaders is what I will call the ability to make sense of what
mm,
is out there, the ability of joining the dots, connecting the signals, you know, um, understand the connections. Because AI is capable of doing so many things for us, but clearly we need to retain, you know, our ability to really understand what is coming out of AI, challenge it, and review it as
mm,
necessary. But more importantly, as human beings, retain the capability of making sense of what is happening around us, joining the dots, um, picking up the weak signals
mm,
that are telling us that something is changing or something is evolving, and therefore for us to be able to use technology
mm,
like AI to help us out and really be able to understand and communicate what really matters right now, what is important for us as individuals, as a teams, really to focus on and make sure that we do things in the right way.
mm,
So the way we learn most likely will change, when with AI and when it will become even more than that. Uh, and that's fine. But I think what it makes us, as leaders, I mean, individuals, really successful over time is really be able to really make sense of what is out there and be able to understand what is happening,
mm,
seeing the trends, joining the dots, so that we can arrive at at an understanding of what is happening and what will happen, and therefore we can adapt and evolve, using then whatever tools, whatever technology, whatever resources are available. I mean, I think we are at the dawn of exciting times. When speaking about technology, I've always been an optimist about
Mm.
technology, but also very aware that we need to have, the right governance and the right principles behind implementing technology. So all of this really goes under the banner of, yeah, making sense of what is happening and being able to develop. I would say, a vision and a strategy and approach that can help us as individuals and us as leaders really shape our future.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, from basically what you said, what I've understood is as an individual, you need to have your own agency, right? To not let lead AI, you know, basically show you where to go. Rather, you know where to go, but you're just asking or get using the support of artificial intelligence to get there, to reach there. I mean, like you said, with the year six students, instead of just asking the answer, they've actually had the sense to say why. What was the working out? How did they come to this answer? That's pretty much how I use artificial
Yeah,
intelligence.
yeah.
Sometimes what I do is I kind of give it a brain dump and I ask it to put it into bullet points.
Hmm.
Okay, in terms of my general thought process.
Yeah.
Plenty of times I've gone into events and it's like 4, 5 hours, right? By the first couple hours, I've completely zoned out. I'm completely somewhere else. But certain parts interest me and then I come back into the event. All of that, I come back and I don't have time to journal. So I'll put it down as a brain dump onto ChatGPT and I ask it to put it into a coherent bullet point list to
Yeah.
see what I can use from that, to see how I can take it forward into the future. What I don't need to focus on.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much, Massimo.
It's a pleasure,
Yeah,
man. It's a
thank you
pleasure.
so much for agreeing to, setting this up and have this conversation recorded. Okay, so that basically brings us to an end. Okay, I will be planning to get this uploaded in the next couple of days. So that's before our event on Friday. Okay.
Okay.
So if there is anything else that you want to say in the recording in terms of your own work or in terms of the events that you're carrying out, please do so. If not, in the description when I upload it onto YouTube, I'll put a link to your LinkedIn page.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thank you.
Okay. And then I'll just be able to signpost you.
Yeah. 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 Also, what I can do, I can send you my link to Eventbrite.
Mm,
So in addition to LinkedIn, so please connect with me. Wonderful. I mean, I'm happy to accept connection requests. That's fine. But also in terms of practical things like trainings and stuff, they can follow me
the
on
Eventbrite,
on Eventbrite so that they can receive notification. And I will send you the link
the
on
links.
WhatsApp.
Perfect. Thank you, Massimo.
Thank you,
Well,
Ventan. That was
guys, thank you for watching the recording. Okay, at this point, I'm going to just stop the recording. All right. Thank you.
thank you, Ventan. I really appreciate.